Jordan and Gretzky, Serena and Ruth. Remembering great ones is easy to do. But what about the no-names who spent their whole lives long snapping footballs and catching sack flies? They're guys, remember that guy. Remember that guy, remember that guy, remember that guy, remember that guy. They're just gonna remember some guys now.
On a 1-2, Ohtani sends one in the air, the other way, back it goes, gone! One-of-a-kind player, one-of-a-kind season. Shohei Ohtani starts, remember that guy, the show where we mine our memories for nuggets of nostalgia about peripheral players, past and present. Hey there, folks, it's me, one of your hosts, James, and I've got a one-of-a-kind partner with me here today.
One of a kind, because there is only one podcast like this. There's only one co-host of this podcast. Diaz back with you once again. We do only have the one co-host, but we do have a very special guest. He doesn't have 50 home runs. He doesn't have 50 stolen bases. But he does have 50 of something else for you. Please introduce yourself.
Actually, he has 41 and 73 because he has Ronald Acuna Jr. in fantasy.
I do almost feel a little bad for Acuna this season.
I mean, there's something special about 50-50, but the thing that's wild is when you actually look at Ohtani's stats, they're not that great compared to even other Ohtani seasons. Like, his OPS is worse than last year, his OPS plus is worse than last year, his batting average, OBP, slugging, all worse than last year. Like, it just happens that he has hit more home runs and they've made it easier to steal bases. He decided that he wanted to do that. Like, it's a weird one for the, war is everything nerds, because it's like, hey, this is the most special season that's ever happening. And he's doing this as a pitcher recovering from injury. And then it's like, well, he didn't pitch this season and didn't play the field ever. And it's technically worse than other Ohtani seasons and seasons that happened last year. Like,
you sound a little Bronx there, Xavier, which, by the way, is the name of our very special guest.
Bobby Witt Jr. would win the NL MVP if he was in the NL, because he is 2 full wins better than Shohei Ohtani right now.
All right,
guess what? Bobby Witt should win the AL MVP. Sorry.
Bobby Witt Jr. is worse than Aaron Judge in every single category, because Aaron Judge is 3 wins better than Shohei Ohtani in WAR, because he is better in every single offensive category and plays the field.
Here's what this conversation is right now. This is the bell curve meme. We're on the dumb side. It says Shohei Ohtani is the greatest player who's ever lived. And then in the middle, we have Xavier saying, no, well, if you look at XWBA and XYZ, actually, he's not even a top 2 player this year. And then here on the enlightened side, we're just saying Shohei Ohtani is the greatest player of all time.
He put up .7 WAR last night. I just want to leave it at that. He put up .7 WAR he put up .7 F WAR, which greatly values defense more than B WAR.
Do you know what his offensive WAR is so far this season? It's 7.8. Aaron Judge is 10.8, which is 3 better than Shohei Ohtani. And also, they looked into it. It's not the most WAR Shohei has had in a single game ever. Because he's had games where he had multiple home runs and pitched.
It's crazy to me that you think that's an argument against him. Hey, Diaz, what's making memories for you?
It's an argument against him right now. He's great. He's phenomenal. But 50-50 is arbitrary and means nothing when we had 40-70 in a better season last year.
Okay, talk to me when arbitrary home run records don't matter anymore, Aaron Judge fan. Diaz, what's making memories for you?
It's not arbitrary. He's just better in everyone. He's worse in every stat than Shohei. Shohei is overrated because he has an entire country backing him, and people love him even though his interpreter took the fall for his massive gambling problem.
2 countries.
Let me just say one more thing for Shohei Ohtani, because Xavier wants to make this an Aaron Judge comparison. Here's what it is. It's a Michael Jordan comparison.
James made it an Aaron Judge comparison. I was making a Ronald Acuna comparison.
We're trying to distract from the fact that, and this is again, just let's simplify it to its most base level. Shohei Ohtani deciding to become an elite base stealer as well as everything else that he's great at. The only thing I can compare it to is when Michael Jordan went against the Blazers in the 92 finals. They were like, Michael Jordan, Clyde Drexler. Clyde can shoot the three better. I mean, I might want Clyde. And then in the first half of the first game of the NBA Finals, Michael Jordan sets the NBA Finals record for threes made in a game. That's what Shohei just did. And, like, you can throw at me B-War, F-War. I say F that. I say let's just appreciate what is happening with our eyeballs. And what's happening with our eyeballs is we're witnessing the greatest baseball player of all time. And he becomes more the greatest baseball player of all time with each passing season. But enough about that. Let's talk about what else is making memories for me, which is today, it is official. The Sixers core is locked up. Joel Embiid has signed his extension. He's going to make so much fucking money. It's a little staggering.
Make so much money.
It's a little staggering to actually look at it. And also when you think like, okay, it's the extension itself, so it doesn't consider this year. But it's a 3-year extension for $193 million. That's $61 million this season. I bet you he won't play 61 regular season games in any of those seasons. Like, nor should he. He shouldn't play any more back-to-backs the rest of his life. I want him to have the 2-week scheduled maintenance, like, rest at some point. Like, but here's the thing. If he's making $1 million each time he takes the court, it's not enough. He should make $2 million. He should make $3 million. He should make $5 million. And I was thinking about this, and I said this in one of my group chats earlier. Forget if it's one that Xavier's in. This is the first time, truly since the first Sixers playoff run, when it was still Rocco and Dario, that the core is locked in. There are no questions about what's the lineup going to look like next season, who's going to be in, who's going to be out. This is the team. The team is Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George. We got some really nice ancillary pieces. You got Kelly Oubre, you got Caleb Martin, you got Kyle Lowry, Philly boy. You got Reggie Jackson. You got Gershon Yabusele, who yammed on LeBron and now is like the biggest.
I got a job from it.
But like he was also just very good in those Olympics.
Like,
he had
for sure.
The viral moment, and there's a little, we'll get to that later. But like he also backed it up with his play on the court throughout the entirety of the Olympics. And like, listen, man, there's no more excuses. I'm not saying this has to be the year that they win it, but this has to be the year that they like make a serious run at winning it. Like, we need to beat a good team in the playoffs. We haven't done that yet, really.
You need to get to the Eastern Conference Finals this year.
Right, yeah. It's like, it's for better or for worse, like, it's going to happen in the next 4 years or it's not going to.
Yeah.
But there is relief in knowing, like, again, like, it's not like, oh, shit, like, we need to make a big trade at the deadline. Like, we can make a trade at the deadline. We can get, like, the missing piece. But the core is here. The core is beautiful. I can't wait. You know, I think it's the 4th time I'm saying this in the history of this podcast. I think it's the year.
I think it might just be the year, Diaz.
I think it is.
Sixers Spurs 2025 Finals.
Oh, God. Dude, here's the thing. I would be terrified if Wemby's already there because it would be like, well, this is his crowning moment. This is like the NBA is now Wemby's. Like, the narrative to me would just be so like, okay, it's very clearly what's about to happen.
That would be, I think, the best possible player for him to like have to try and win his first title against. That's not happening yet, I can tell you.
I mean, they got a lot better at the end of the season.
They did.
You're adding Chris Paul. Chris
saying
Paul's a floor raiser, baby.
Spurs can make the play-in this year, no question. Spurs can make the play-in, but that's not happening right now. I wonder, Xavier, if there's anything that's making memories for you right now that is happening.
Oh, there's plenty making memories for me.
Well, lay it on, buddy.
Do you remember when I was talking about Jordan Childs and the appeal over the inquiry issue that stripped her bronze medal?
Yeah, I've not heard any updates, so I'm very excited you're bringing this up.
So they officially filed an appeal to the Swiss Federal Tribunal, which is the only thing that can hear appeals from CAS. And this is wild. There was a documentary series being filmed for Simone Biles for Netflix called Simone Biles Rising.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, they had video and audio for the entire arena in every angle. And they submitted all of this as part of the appeal. This is from the Washington Post from yesterday, Thursday the 19th. The Washington Post analyzed dozens of videos to examine the disputed inquiry, including footage from fans in the arena, television broadcasts, and new video evidence in Child's latest appeal, which is the documentary evidence. The post-review shows CAS ruled against Childs based on time markers that don't precisely match the sport's protocol for inquiries. For the last gymnast in the rotation, the rule states a coach must verbally initiate an inquiry within 1 minute of the score being shown in the arena. The new video evidence, filmed by Religion of Sports, the documentary crew that followed Childs' teammate Simone Biles in Paris, captured audio of Landy, who is the coach of Jordan Childs, asking for the inquiry within that minute. So, Childs finishes her routine at 3:29 p.m. Omega, the official timekeeper of the Olympics, records the timestamp of 3:32:17 as the official score time. This doesn't get shown on the video board until 3:32:20, 3 seconds after the official score time. At 3:33:03, 43 seconds after the score appears on the screen and 46 seconds after the official score time, the coaches decide that they want to do an inquiry. 3 seconds later, so 46 seconds after the score was posted and 49 seconds after the official time, they request in English, inquiry for Jordan. 8 seconds after that, they repeat inquiry for Jordan because it looks like the person did not hear them. So even at this point, this is 54 seconds after the score was shown on the screen, 57 seconds after the official time. So this second verbal inquiry is still within the 1 minute mark. 1:01, official presses button to register inquiry. So the official pressed the button 1 minute and 1 second after the time was shown on the video board and 1 minute and 4 seconds after the official score time. That 1 minute and 4 seconds is what CAS used to say that Jordan's appeal was filed too late. This video evidence shows that 2 verbal appeals were filed earlier than that 1 minute, and the gymnastics official just waited for no reason to press the button.
I want to say this is all like some incredibly hall monitor shit. But to be fair, like, you have to fight hall monitor shit with hall monitor shit. And it is a great twist that we have this footage.
And what's wild is there was also footage that there was an inquiry that was supposed to be filed for Simone because they believed that she was shortchanged as well. And if that inquiry had been successful, she may have won over Rebecca Andrade. Simone did tweet, honestly, not a big deal for me. Rebecca had a better floor anyways, upsetting how it wasn't processed, but I'm not mad at the results. But justice for Jordan, you hear me? And then with multiple exclamation points. So these officials just seem to not be paying attention whatsoever, where they missed an inquiry for Simone Biles. It took 2 different verbal inquiries for Jordan Childs, and then they still waited to actually press the button to file it on their end, meaning that it was late only because of their incompetence, but by the letter of the law, Jordan Childs' coaches filed the inquiry prior to the deadline, and if the Swiss tribunal accepts this, because the worry is always, do they just say, well, you should have sent us this that first time, which, as we talked about before, they did not give the U.S. any notice whatsoever of the hearing. So the Swiss tribunal could still say no, but it seems pretty cut and dry that the U.S. is right. Jordan Childs should be the bronze medalist. Whether it plays out that way, I guess we'll have to see.
It's just dumb. This is just such a dumb thing, man.
Not try to out-sue us.
Yeah.
Nobody sues like us.
Why would you want to go to court with the U.S.? We're such fucking assholes about this.
That's why they didn't tell us about it and tried to just do it on the side without letting us have any chance to prepare.
For sure.
And hope that they win on technicalities and not for actually being right. So I will keep everyone posted on what happens with that. Hopefully the Swiss tribunal, because we know the Swiss love technically correct things, the best kind of correct. So hopefully this does something. In other U.S. news, I was watching the Under-20 Women's World Cup because I love all soccer. The U.S. women were losing to Germany in the quarterfinals, 1-0 going into stoppage time. 8 minutes of stoppage time. Germany scores a second, 2-0. It looks like it's over. 90 plus 8, U.S. scores. So about 30 seconds left in what the normal stoppage time would have been. But because of 2 goals, there's another minute. Within a minute, U.S. scores again on a German own goal. So 90 plus 8, 90 plus 9, U.S. scores, goes to penalties. USA beats Germany 3-1 in penalties to make the semifinals. The German hearts were broken, and it was only televised in Spanish, so the Telemundo calls were phenomenal.
The corazones were broken. The corazones Estaban rotas, lo siento. Qué lástima.
I'll take your word for it.
Boom.
Then last thing I want to talk about. So the Houston Dash, an NWSL team, they're in a weird situation. They're not good this year. But one of the bigger problems is their coach just disappeared. No one knows what happened. The coach of the Houston Dash is a man named Fran Alonso, a Spaniard, and he just took over in February. Well, his first game was in February. He was hired end of last year. In late June, the team said that he had an illness that was precluding him from traveling to a game, just for one game. Since then, he's been on an extended leave of absence, and no one has heard anything about him. Like, nothing at all. And the team refuses to talk about it. The players have no idea where he is. And their game has suffered badly because they talk about it's like a weird situation. Everything's really uncertain. No one knows what's going on. Or at least if they do, they're not telling the players. And they've been, struggling. But this is not really new for the Houston Dash in that since 2022, they've had 32 league matches run by coaches, 32 league matches run by interims when their coaches have either been fired or disappeared.
This is the first one that's disappeared, right? All the rest were fired?
I hope so. I really hope so. But yeah, no one knows what happened to Fran Alonso, and the Houston Dash are at the bottom of the NWSL standings, and the players are very concerned about what the future holds.
There was a problem, and there's nothing they could do about it. It's unfortunate, but it's what happens.
You said that in such a fucking mafia tone.
I've been watching Sopranos for the first time. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it in my soul.
You took a pose. Like, the listener couldn't see the kind of relaxed, it is what it is.
So it's weird. We'll see what happens. But to end on a not super sour note, one, I saw Lando Norris drive a full-size McLaren P1 made out of Legos, which is cool as all hell. Even the engines are made out of Legos. And all hail the Calgorithm. For all the Cal fans who are trolling FSU on Twitter, it is absolutely phenomenal. I'm pretty sure my favorite is either the Simpsons one where it's the Soviet Union is back, but it's actually Cal football, or the one of Woke Walker Stadium where they have the FSU has announced the stripe out. Check your road number. If you're in the 60s, wear Marxist red, 50s orange, 40s they, them yellow, 30s capitalism is a crime green, 20s Atlantic Coast blue, and 0 to 19 open border purple. And I just love it so much. Cal fans are very funny on Twitter. Cal, I was not familiar with the game. Very impressive.
Decolonize the ACC. If it's all right with you all, I want to go a little bit further abroad for what's making memories with me right now. I learned of this story a little bit ago, but I did not feel that I was properly equipped with background information to talk more about it. So I did share this at one point, and I'm curious if either of the two read it when I share it with you. Do you guys remember anything about Nicholas Terashenko?
Sounds like a hockey player.
There is a Terashenko who was on the Blues that beat the Bruins. But no, this is Nicholas Terashenko. He is from England, Hull specifically. He's 15 years old right now. He's got an English mother and an Estonian father. That's where the Terashenko name comes from. But his star is not rising in England. His star is instead coming up in Japan because Nicholas Terashenko has, in the last 2 years, become one of the best foreign prospects in sumo in a very, very long time.
Oh, that's awesome.
He grew up playing rugby and judo, and the judo probably helped a lot, because his dad, Georgi, took him over to Japan. They were going to go to see an Estonian sumo wrestler. This isn't totally unproven grounds, but while seeing it, seemingly he just entered the U14 sumo tournament on a whim while in Japan, and after an hour of basic training, took the gold in his weight category in U14. And so this year, after loving that experience, he and his father and his brother David came back to the 2024 edition of the same tournament he was in last year, the Barudu Cup. I may mispronounce some things while I'm going through here. I'm very sorry if I do, to anyone that knows better. But at the Barudu Cup with his younger brother David, David did pretty well. He got a silver in the under 70 kilogram U14 and a bronze in that same weight category for the under 16. Nicholas, in the under 16 open weight and under 95 kilogram categories, got double gold. At this age, this is relatively unprecedented territory. The participation of other countries beyond Japan is not unprecedented. But like with the NPB teams, as we discussed, there is a certain limit by the Japan Sumo Association, the JSA. There are only so many foreign entrants that can exist in the very, very codified league system of sumo. There are currently about 550 total rikishi, and of that, they have one in every stable that is allowed to be a non-Japanese born one. The stables, it's not just like how we have kind of groups in America. They are very literally like training factories, more or less, where the sumo live together, eat together, train together, everything. And some are as small as 1, some are as big as 30. There's a lot of other people that maintain like the ceremonial aspects of the sumo presentation that are also there. And there are 43 of these, and so only 43 maximum foreign entrants in that 550 total, so less than 10%. It is a huge deal for a 15-year-old to be participating. But there is a mid-tier stable, Minato, and they think he has raw potential. So they have indeed brought him in. He had to go back to Hull this September, so this month, just to like keep up with school. The hope is that when he turns 16, he's going to be able to get a visa to continue his studies abroad, and he will just be able to become a full-time rikishi. And like that is his immediate goal, but he is very ambitious. At the very highest level of sumo, there is like a highest official title amongst that. And there could be more than one at a time. This isn't like this is the grand champion in the world. It's more like a grandmaster in chess. Like there are however many grandmasters. Very often there's only one, but it is possible for there to be more than one. This status is called yokozuna. This, kind of like the Sadaharu O home run record in NPB, has been controversial in kind of like how it's treated with foreign participants. At one point, there were like some really high-profile players who happened to be perhaps Samoan or Hawaiian born and met the criteria, as Isaiah Thomas might say, but were not selected for yokozuna status. In 1993, we did finally have our very first. He was a Hawaiian born, and since then, 7 of the last 10 yokozuna have been foreign born, 2 altogether from Hawaii, 5 from Mongolia. There's a couple other like highest ranked guys right now in the Mukuchi tier, which is that highest tier that includes yokozuna. For the record, if you want to really get into the fucking weeds on Wikipedia for a day, just read about high-level sumo. But like even in the Makuchi tier, which is currently at 42, only 8 of them are non-Japanese. In addition to Mongolia, we've also got a guy from Kazakhstan. We have a Russian-Mongolian guy. All of these guys often have, if they are not from one of the countries that's producing them, like Japan or Mongolia, it's a guy from Russia who is also half Japanese, or a guy from Hawaii who has Japanese parents. Like, a white boy getting to yokozuna would be crazy, and he is far from that, Nicholas Tereshchenko. He's very, very, very far from that. That's looking way ahead in the future. But it is incredibly cool for a 15-year-old to be in this. One other thing I will give you a heads up about, if you are going to look into sumo, is that it is also in the running for most corrupt sport of all time. So just like be ready for that illusion to be shattered. It is one of the most corrupt sports that has ever existed in the last 30 years.
We've got to get rid of some of the barriers in his path. We have to do what we can, get rid of those limits, or get rid of the people who are making those limits. Maybe a couple sumo disappear. It's fine. They'll be taken care of. I promise they'll all be doing great. But
you want us to pick a fight with sumo wrestlers, and the people that run Japan Sumo Association, who I will let you know, as I have learned, are required to be ex-sumo wrestlers.
Did I ever say that we were going to fight anyone? There are other ways to deal with this. You did say they are extremely corrupt, which means that money is an option.
I don't know if we have that kind of money. Hey, folks, I don't know. Maybe if you want to donate to Remember That Guy, we can get Nicholas Tereshchenko's wheels greased.
The US dollar goes a long way in Japan.
Just crowdsource rigging sumo wrestling. I just wanted to say, I felt like the Leo DiCaprio meme because Rikishi and Yokozuna are both WWE wrestlers.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
Old school ones who are retired, but it is delightful. It's fun. It's a little like Yokozuna I like. Rikishi I don't like because like Rikishi in WWE is just like a Samoan dude. So they definitely are just like, that word sounds cool. Let's fucking name them that.
It's definitely just a code word for foreign, essentially, to them.
Right, yeah, just our audience isn't going to know the difference.
No. And I will say, the fact that they share those names does make it a little difficult with English language sources to search for them sometimes. because I've been spending, like I said, a lot of time on the internet. Diaz, you mentioned a viral trend earlier. Xavier, you talked about the calgorithm. So let's just go ahead and move on to what we have today, because we're going to stay on the internet primarily. This is my category to select. And today I have selected guys who became or inspired memes. Since I'm the one bringing the category forward, I feel like the duty falls on me to just like talk about the concept of a meme for 1 second to really belabor the point. This is a term that is initially coined in 1976 by Richard Dawkins, who's the dickhead atheist, if you don't remember. It is a term that is used to describe the way that thoughts and ideas, or more specifically to our purposes, jokes and joke formats spread through a large connected community, whether that be a like region, whether that be the world, through the World Wide Web. And if we want to be fancy, this is another chance that we can use to reference the Commedia dell'arte on this show. In Commedia dell'arte, the whole idea is there are stock characters that you immediately recognize, and so you don't need to explain what they're about to the audience. You see a certain costume, and you know what that character's whole deal is. So you can just immediately throw them into a scene, and everyone has that background info. And I think that's really similar to how we should think about memes going into this. It is a joke format that, as it naturally evolves in an internet environment, typically, it's going to benefit from instant recognition from people. You know the punchline. The punchline doesn't change. You just change the setup every time. In modern day, this has been like very visually based. We think about in the 2000s, like the image macros with impact text over just pictures of cats, moving into like the wave of stock response GIFs on Twitter and other social media. And very often a lot of this references sports and is used to communicate about sports and make jokes about sports. And I think in particular, basketball is probably the sport that is fed into that the most. So today I want to talk about a relentlessly memed hooper and my guy today, Nick Young.
Swaggy P.
I thought when you said basketball, to me there were only two options. It was Swaggy P, or I thought maybe JaVale McGee, but Swaggy
JaVale
P.
McGee. I considered it. We'll mention at one point. And like some shouts to some others. I mean, Shaq is not a guy, but like Shaq's an all-timer in the GIF world. I don't know if you could make an argument for Alonzo Mourning. Maybe there's a talk there. You'd have to like convince us of some extra stuff to bring him down from his greatness. And I think Jimmy Butler may have a case someday as a
Jimmy Butler has the most emotive face that I've ever seen in a basketball player.
J.R. Smith.
J.R. Smith is an excellent example. But we are going to be talking about Nicholas Aaron Young today, who was born in Los Angeles on June 1st, 1985. Born into a pretty prominent family lineage in the SoCal region. So let's just talk real quick about a pair of famous cousins he has. First one is Hakeem Carter, better known as Baby Keem. And his other cousin is Kendrick Duckworth, better known as Kendrick Lamar.
Good
talented
cousin.
Family.
Very talented family. It is, though, a family that does not escape some of, like, the downsides of living in South Los Angeles. While Nick Young is basketball from the jump, there are some roadblocks in his life that mostly come up from, like, extra sports reasons. His brother gets shot pretty early on in his life. He's about 8, and he's going to be in and out of school. He drops out of high school, like, multiple times. This is all actually documented, if you ever want to look into it, in Second Chance Season. It's a 2007 documentary that'll later come out about Nick Young, dealing with the choice to go back to high school the second time while all of the fallout from his brother's death is still relevant. But he does eventually bring himself back to Grover Cleveland High for his senior season. It's difficult for him to stand out in this recruiting class. It's a pretty intense class coming out of high school. We've got Dwight Howard, we have Sean Livingston, Rudy Gay, LaMarcus Aldridge. We've got your boy Corey Brewer Diaz. We got Rajon Rondo. Xavier, we have J.R. Smith, speaking of him earlier. So not easy for him to necessarily get a lot of recognition, but local scouts know what's up. And so he does manage to earn a spot with the USC Trojans as he enters college. This is right in 2004, the tail end of the Henry Bibby era. Henry Bibby gets fired 4 games into this first season after missing the tournament the last 2 years. And so Tim Floyd comes in. Nick Young, as a freshman, is very quickly like one of the main starters in this lineup. 11 points a game in 25 and a half minutes. Just starts getting better as Tim Floyd comes in. In 05-06, makes 30 starts, 33 minutes a game, and he's up to 17.3 points. And then finally, 2006, 2007, this will be his last year of college, and he's playing alongside a couple other great guys, Taj Gibson and Gabe Pruitt, who will both be in the NBA soon enough. Young is, though, the leading scorer. In 33 minutes, he goes up to 17.6 points a game, 52.5% from the field, 44% from three on this junior season. Trojans go 21-10 in the regular season, finish with a 23 ranking, and they do make it to the Pac-10 title game before they get absolutely fucking blown out by the Oregon Ducks. Nonetheless, though, they're still a 5 seed entering the March Madness tournament. They go on a little bit of a run, blow out Arkansas in the first round, and then they blow out Texas, headed by Kevin Durant, by 32 points. They do eventually fall to UNC in the next round, and that is the end of Nick Young's college career as he declares for the 2007 NBA draft. And once again, it's going to be kind of difficult for Nick Young to stand out amongst this because this is a pretty great class. In the top 4, you've got Greg Oden, which was a completely reasonable pick at the time, and then Kevin Durant, Al Horford, and Mike Conley. Phenomenal top 4. And just to go through a couple of the other guys in this incredibly guy-dense draft, Spencer Hawes, Thad Young, Marco Bellinelli, Tiago Splitter, Aaron Brooks, once again Corey Brewer, and his USC teammate Gabe Pruitt. Young ends up going right in the middle of the first round, 16th overall to the Washington Wizards. The Wiz, much like their draft pick, has been pretty middle of the pack at this point. For 3 years, they've gone 127 and 118 in that span, with Gilbert Arenas being their best player at this point. In his first year, Nick Young is mostly coming off the bench. He's going to average 7.5 points per game in 15 minutes, and Wiz have another totally just middle of the pack year, 43 and 49. Nick Young takes a little bit of a step forward the next year. He's now a double-digit scorer, 10.9 points per game in 22.5 minutes, but the bottom absolutely falls out for the Wizards. They go 19 and 63 that year, 26 and 56 the following, and then a bunch of members of the team getting some hot water. Before we get into that, again, I'm sorry to keep just listing off names here, but there have been some insanely guy-dense lists, so here is an all-timer for RTG. That's this Wizards squad. Nick Young, Gilbert Arenas, Randy Foye, Sean Livingston, JaVale McGee, Mike Miller, Anton Jameson, and Fabricio Oberto. Chef kiss all around.
I love it. But if we're going to mention the hot water, we can't leave out Javaris Crittenton.
That's true. So let's go ahead and get to that hot water. Part of the reason that they have so many players on that roster, 24 play at some point for Washington in that year, one time or another, that stems from a little incident on Christmas Eve 2009. Gilbert Arenas, it was known that he brought unloaded firearms to the arena regularly by the team. He pulls out one that may have been loaded on teammate Javaris Crittenton due to some gambling debts, and that's pretty bad. But what might be worse in the eyes of the league, which is fucking insane to say, are the events on January 6th, 2010, just a little bit later. Now, Gilbert Arenas' 28th birthday. Nick Young is one of a couple players on the team who, during player intros, when Gilbert Arenas comes out, just shoot some finger guns at him in a game against the Sixers. I'm going to go ahead and say, if someone is still in the league after having a loaded firearm in the locker room, I don't think you can draw the line at fucking finger guns during player intros.
I'm reminded of the Chris Rock joke, which was like, white kid shoots up a school, nothing happens. Black rapper says the word gun, congressional hearing. Yeah. So this leads to Gilbert Arenas literally being the first ever player waived due to the amnesty clause, and it results in a $10,000 fine for the other players involved, which include JaVale McGee, Randy Foye, Andre Blatch, and Nick Young. So this is Nick Young's first, I won't call this a Nick Young viral moment, but maybe this is Nick Young seeing what a viral moment can be in a teammate and aspiring to that someday for himself.
Free Agent Zero, he did nothing wrong.
Can I name one crazier pregame introduction moment involving weapons of violence and an NBA player? Paul Pierce, I don't think it was one of his first games back, but after the whole stabbing thing, there was an intro where several of his teammates pretended to gang stab him.
Yeah, it's a little
right
worse.
after
There's
his thing
something
was
about that's more intimate, you know? Here's the sad thing is that honestly, this is probably the highlight of Nick Young's Washington career. Like, he has one 43-point game against the Kings, because everybody gets a 40-point game at some point. And that's pretty much it. He gets traded on March 28th, 2012 from the Wizards to the LA Clippers. And now we get to see hometown Nick Young for the first time. He has a nice little half season with the Clips at the very beginning of the Lob City run. He's there for 22 games, the bench piece under coach and Spurs legend Vinny Del Negro. The Clippers get their first playoff berth in 6 years. They beat the Grit and Grind Grizzlies. Just some fucking great team nicknames here.
Let me say, I want to say it was game 4 of that series. Might have been game 5. But one of those games, the Clippers were just getting their fucking asses handed to them. They're down like 15-18 in the fourth quarter. And Vinny Del Negro says, fuck it, what do I have to lose? Nick Young, go out there. And he hits like 5 threes in a row at a time when, like, if a player hit 3 threes in a game, you'd be like, wow, that guy was really lighting it up from 3. He hit 3 in one game. Very much his welcome to the NBA moment.
Yeah, he is a very valuable piece of this Clippers team that's going to go on to do a lot of good things. And maybe if they'd kept Nick Young, they would have been able to do more. Even with Nick Young and even with Spurs legend Vinny Del Negro, they are not able to overcome San Antonio in the second round, and they get swept in 4 games. So that does end it for them in the Western Conference semis for this year. And now he's a free agent. Gets to choose where he wants to go. He's going to go to the East Coast, and he is going to join another incredible RTG roster, the 2012-2013 Philadelphia 76ers. This is right before the process begins, and we've got 2 of his draft mates, Thaddeus Young and Spencer Hawes. We've also got Justin and Drew Holiday, Evan Turner, former Wizard, along with a young Kwame Brown, and we have Temple's Lavoy Allen on this roster. Diaz, I mean, you can speak a little bit to this, but it's a pretty good one looking back.
Well,
Not an actually good one, but like a fun one.
Well, that season was so fun because there were 2 seasons when I had the free season tickets with the Sixers fan group. That was the second season. And that was like 2-3 weeks before the season started. We traded Iguodala and Vucevic for Andrew Bynum. And it was like, this is it. This is the big move. We have the big center, Andrew Bynum, 24 years old, perfect health. He's going to be so good here. We got Jason Richardson in that trade too. So it's like Jay Rich was like, oh, here comes the vet. He's going to show all these guys how to do it. And yeah, Nick Young on a 1-year contract who was thought to be like, listen, we lost Stu Williams, but we have Nick Young.
We have Nick Young. And honestly, like, Lou Williams would be about as much as you could hope for because he's still coming off the bench at this point, but he is having his 3rd straight year as a double-digit scorer off the bench in 23.9 minutes a game, 10.6 points. Perhaps he is almost too good because now the process is going to take hold. Nick Young's going to win you some basketball games, and we can't be having that as we move into this next era of Sixers basketball.
We need bricks. We need you to throw it up and then turn around, and it doesn't go in. That's what we need.
Yes, and had Brick Young been in his like true peak, maybe he could have been what the Sixers needed, but there was another home he could go to. His actual hometown team in LA. This is when Nick Young, on a 1-year deal, joins the Los Angeles Lakers, the 2013-2014 season. This is an enormous year for Swaggy P, and I've waited until now, Xavier, to acknowledge the nickname that you christened him with there initially. Let's start with the nickname. Do you happen to know who gave Nick Young that nickname?
Matt Paul.
There's one guess. What about you, Diaz?
It sounds like Gilbert Arenas probably would have.
So you're both wrong. The person that gave Nick Young that nickname is God. God appeared to Nick Young in a dream and said, hey man, I got a new name for you. And he told him it's Swaggy P. Do you want to guess what that means?
I'm going to say the P stands for Prince.
Oh, you're close, Xavier. Do you want to help him with the assist?
Prophet.
There we go. That's teamwork, baby. He is the prophet of swag, Swaggy P, as decreed by God. Now, he wasn't a fan of this name at first, but like God wore him down because how are you going to say no to the big man? All of that is 100% true. So we've got the prophet of swag now playing back home in the Staples Center. It's a career year for him coming off the bench for the Lakers. Has 17.9 points per game at this point. That's better than his best college season. And it's in 28 minutes a game. Shoots 38.6 from 3. Has a team record 7 4-point plays. I don't think that matters that much, but hey, that's a Lakers franchise record. However, he is best remembered, Diaz, for a 3 that does not go in. On March 25th, 2014, it's a Lakers-Knicks game. And the Lakers are massacring New York. I am sorry, Xavier. It is 101-73 as we near the end of the third quarter.
I brought up a game last week for my own guy where the Knicks were losing by 30. Like,
well, there
that
you go.
doesn't
This is
surprise
only
me.
28. In the final seconds of the third quarter, Nick Young hoists one up from 3 and immediately turns to celebrate. And then he does think to turn back and check, see whether or not he made the shot. And it did not go in. This is a pretty short clip, and maybe it would have gone unremembered if it did not end up both as a GIF and, more importantly, on the next segment of Shaqtin' a Fool. The GIF of it, this is still like a pretty early Twitter period, but this becomes the shorthand for shooting your shot, which we're all told to do, and then utterly failing, which happens when many of us do indeed shoot our shots. And what I love about this is, like, this is unquestionably, spoiler alert, the best year of his career. One that earns him a new deal with the Lakers for up to 4 years with options. But all that this season is remembered for is when he hoisted this one up and it didn't go in. Like, he gets down ballot 6 Man of the Year votes, but this is what everyone takes away from it.
Well, and this was also, I'm pretty sure this was Pau Gasol's last year with the Lakers. Was this
He's
season?
definitely on it. Yeah, he's definitely on this roster because you immediately see him also put his head down in disgust after Nick Young misses the shot.
And if you were going to touch on this, I don't want to steal your thunder, but the last home game of the season, they always have a player address the crowd and say, blah, 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 thanks for coming out. Nick Young addressed the crowd instead of Pau Gasol. And I will always remember a TMZ interview with him later that night. Like, he's clearly like shit-faced stumbling out of a crowd, and TMZ gets him. And they say, Nick, some people are saying that, since Pau was on the championship teams, that Pau should have given the speech. What do you think? And he just said, and I quote, "I'm the star. I am Swaggy P."
He's the prophet of swag. How much better is it now that you know that God gave him that name?
I mean, who could ever argue with it? God gave it.
He couldn't. He tried and he failed. 2014, though. Not done with Swaggy P just yet. The calendar year, at least. This is around the time that he starts dating Australian quote-unquote rapper Iggy Azalea. And already...
that's gonna knock him down on my list. I'm sorry, James.
Hey, we'll get to it. He's already pretty comfortable being on screen at this point. And so he ends up being the first ever filmed subject for this YouTube series called Through the Lens by Casey Athena. It's pretty well watched. It's got numbers that I would kill for this show to have. It is the fourth one that is aired, July 22nd, 2014. We get to just follow a day with Swaggy P and his assistant, Big Meat, go through a normal day. At about the 5-minute, 41-second mark of this video, they're chatting with his mom, who's talking about how, Nick used to be when he was a kid, and talking about how he was a clown. And Nick just reacts to that accusation by his mother, and he looks up in what is now referred to by knowyourmeme.com as the confused Swaggy P face. This is often accompanied in GIF form by some question marks popping up. Perhaps it is the GIF of him looking as if you have just said something entirely out of pocket, as if there is cap to your statement. So we've got the missed three-pointer and the confused face. In one calendar year, has like probably 2 of the top 50 GIFs ever used on the Twitter website. Just an insane amount of productivity, which is good because his on-court productivity drops off immediately after that season. Starts with a training camp injury that first year that's going to keep him out till November. Really isn't backing it up on the court anymore at this point. So the Lakers end up getting a little more tired of this. One Laker teammate, though, really kind of puts it over the top. In late 2015, Nick Young is engaged to Iggy Azalea. Sorry, Xavier. The next season, D'Angelo Russell secretly records a conversation with Nick Young where he admits to cheating on Iggy Azalea multiple times, specifically with one Kiana Green. Kiana Green is a woman that he met in high school in 2002. She fell for him hard, and they've been on and off throughout the years. They already have a kid at this point in 2012. I am sure that he had assured Iggy Azalea that that's in the past and nothing will ever come of it. But this breaks. Iggy Azalea breaks off the engagement, and that's when they find out that Kiana Green is pregnant with her second child by Nick Young. So excellent job there by Swaggy P in the overall idea of marriage fidelity, or I guess engaged fidelity. This does really blow up in D'Angelo Russell's face, which I always found kind of funny. Like, yeah, it's all a betrayal, but it's just funny to me that, like, the GM Magic Johnson, I guess whatever president title he had at the time, would just come out and say, yeah, that's a big reason why he traded him. We would all know that that's a big reason you traded him. It was just crazy to me that Magic Johnson would out and out say it.
Well, it's like it's the other side of the same coin of Jordan Poole getting his shit rocked by Draymond, and the thing that people are most upset about is that the video leaked.
Honestly, excellent point. Excellent connection. Nick Young, Los Angeles connection does not last much longer than this. His option is not selected for the 2016-2017 season, so he's once again a free agent. And now we get a little bit of a Washington Wizards Gilbert Arenas era reunion, because Nick Young is going to join his old teammates Sean Livingston and JaVale McGee, and a little bit of a reunion also with his 2007 March Madness counterpart, Kevin Durant. It is time for him to come join the Golden State Warriors. In doing so, he also plays with a third cousin that I will mention in this, Kevin Looney. Kevin Looney is also Nick Young's cousin, though he had grown up in Milwaukee, not Los Angeles. And so he'd only really ever gotten to see Nick Young like in times that the Bucks played Nick Young's teams. So he's very excited to get to know him. They're both part of the backup guard rotation along with Livingston and Pat McCall, Quinn Cook. Golden State has the most boring 58-24 season that you can possibly have. They reach the playoffs, steamroll their way there. Win their third title in 4 years. This is the one where the Houston over 27 3-point shooting drought, just one of the most insane playoff moments of all time. Maybe they were infected by Mr. Missed 3-point himself being there. Like, I'm not saying that's Nick Young's whole game, but you see Nick Young across from you. What are you going to be thinking about with Nick Young? You're going to be thinking about missing a 3-pointer. And then when you're confused, what are you going to be thinking about? Confused face Nick Young. Anyway, they sweep the Cleveland Cavaliers for their fourth straight matchup with them. They get the title. It only takes 52 points and 205 total minutes in the playoffs for Nick Young across 20 games to get his first ever championship ring. And for all intents and purposes, that is the end of Swaggy P's NBA career. There is a brief talk of returning to LA in 2018, where he would have actually gotten to join JaVale McGee again. He would have also joined Lance Stevenson and Rajon Rondo. And it's kind of a bummer that he didn't join this. Feel free to hold this as a knock against him, because this becomes kind of referred to as the meme team. And Swaggy P does not, unfortunately, earn a spot on the meme team. So maybe that is against him. He has 4 games with Denver and is cut. So we barely need to include that. But that does factor into his NBA career total of 720 games across a whole 12 seasons. 11.5 points a game, 2 rebounds, 1 assist. He does almost return to the sport in 2023 with the McCall Black Bears. That is a team in a weird Chinese principality that, like, similar to the island of Réunion when we're talking about Jean-Marc Bosman. So it is like Chinese, but not exactly China.
It's tiny. It's extremely tiny. It was a Portuguese colony, and its entire purpose is to be a massive casino. People think about Hong Kong and think it's small. No, Macau is 1/100th of the size of Hong Kong. It's literally like a dot in the ocean that's just a casino.
It's the city Canto Bight from Star Wars The Last Jedi. And unfortunately, Nick Young does not ever play there. He was going to, but the 2023 edition of the Asian tournament gets canceled. So that ends up never happening for him, but I don't think we'll remember that almost in China. I don't think we'll remember those 4 games in Denver. I don't even think we'll remember the effort that it took for him to get to college, let alone the NBA. And we're not going to remember the divine origins of Swaggy P. We're not going to remember the Gilbert Arenas era in Washington. Ultimately, what we're going to remember might not even be Nick Young to people. All we might remember are 2 gifts that transcend him as a player, and any subsequent variation of them, they're going to, in their own way, maintain the ability for us to remember that guy. And so that is why Nick Young is my meme guy this week.
I love Swaggy P. I always have. I always will. I will always remember he was like the Sixers, as you mentioned, that one season that he was with the Sixers. They sucked that year. Like, they were really bad. And we would still try to chance at all the different players during like warm-ups, get to him to acknowledge us. He seemed to be the only one who was like genuinely happy that we were chanting Swaggy P like at him. He always had a very genuine smile and like appreciated it. Like, probably because like he didn't care that the team sucked because he was getting to shoot as much as he wanted.
He gets to be a star.
He is the star. He is Swaggy P.
It might be the only star that we talk about tonight, but we do have 2 other guys to talk about tonight and their places in internet and meme lore. I'd love to hear who we got next.
All right. Well, I don't know if my guy is a star, but the viral moment very certainly involved a significant star in the sport. But first, again, just to give a little pretext, we're going back to 2006 for my viral moment. And that was an important year in my life. Sports-wise, it's the first men's World Cup that I vividly remember watching. Of course, if you're any American sports fan of a certain age, you remember the 99 women's run. But the '06 men's World Cup was really the first time that I was watching not just Team USA, but really men's soccer, period. Because, Philly didn't have an MLS team. I didn't really care, but I was like, oh, World Cup, international.
Is that the loss to Ghana, or is that the one before the loss to Ghana in the knockout rounds?
2002 was, we made the knockout, we beat Mexico 2-0, and then we lost the round of 18. 2010.
I think I'm thinking of 2010.
Beat Algeria on the last day to qualify, and then lost to Ghana. But yeah, '06 was that in-between one. USA was in it, and we'll touch on that a little bit. But 2006 World Cup, first time that I'm very seriously watching soccer. And also that summer, I'm 13 years old, I get my own computer for the first time to go online and see what this whole internet thing is all about. Unsupervised, my own access. At first, a lot of just normie pursuits, looking up sports articles. I'm hearing about this exciting young senator from Illinois. Seems like he might have something to do in a couple of years, but the more time I spend online, the more time I find myself engaging with the deeper reaches of the internet, meme culture, as it were. And one website that I found myself on a lot was one that you both might be aware of. You're the Man Now, dawg. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
So,
YTMND?
James, yes. Xavier, no. You're the Man Now, dawg. I can best describe as like it inspired GIFs. Is kind of what it was.
Yes, and I would also add to that PG-13 4chan.
Yes, PG-13 4chan is also totally fair. I did eventually find my way on the 4chan too.
Obviously.
So a lot of other stuff that I'm not going to talk about on this podcast, but You're the Man Now, dawg was like that perfectly curated. It's a little edgy, but it's mostly funny. And kind of my first purview into meme culture was You're the Man Now, dawg. And the first super viral meme that I can ever remember on You're the Man Now, dawg, which is, it's this moment being repurposed and, drawn up in 100 different formats. And you might already know where I'm going with this. It's the 2006 World Cup final. Italy and France are level at 1 in extra time. And it seems inevitable that this game is just going to go on to penalty kicks. Not really a lot of drama in the extra time, all just waiting for those penalty kicks to come into play. If it goes there, France has to like their chances. They have the all-time great Zinedine Zidane playing his final professional game. Zidane has already converted from the penalty spot earlier in this game to give France their first goal. And you've really got to like your chances if you're a French fan. However, in a moment of inexplicable rage, Zidane headbutted an Italian defender and was sent off with the red card, thus unceremoniously bringing his professional career to an end. Now, obviously, Zinedine Zidane, too good to Guy. But the guy that Zinedine Zidane headbutted is not too good to Guy, for he is a guy, and his name is Marco Materazzi.
Yep. Great lead in Diaz. Probably the first soccer game I can remember ever watching, because I was rooting for Italy, and my brother, who decided to pick a team that I was not rooting for, said, I'm going to root for France. So 13-year-old Xavier and 11-year-old Chris are at each other's throats over two teams that we have never seen before in our lives. Another sibling rivalry there.
Just some very classic antagonism. And we'll get to the antagonism eventually. We will get there. But we're going to start with the birth of Marco Materazzi, which was on August 19th, 1973 in Lecce, Italy, which is a city in the southern part of the country. He's born to Giuseppe, and it's important to note that Giuseppe Materazzi, quite the football man himself. Giuseppe had an 11-year career as a player before spending 39 years as a manager at literally just about every level of the Italian soccer pyramid. He coaches as low as the 4th division, he coaches as high as Serie A, he coaches youth teams, he coaches women's teams. Giuseppe just wants to coach football. Fucking loves it. And so we know Marco comes from this football family. His favorite team growing up is Lazio, and he signs with Lazio's youth academy at the age of 15 years old. Unfortunately, in that same year, his mother does pass away, which is something that kind of sticks with him throughout his career. But he spends those first 2 years, ages 15 and 16, with the Lazio Academy before he signs with his father Giuseppe's team at Messina, which is in the third division of Italy. He does make one appearance for the senior team at 17 years old to make his professional debut, but largely he's playing with the youth team. The next year, his father encourages him to go play for Tor de Quinto, which is hopefully going to accelerate his growth in his career. Tor de Quinto, also a third division team. But after 1 year there, he kind of has a falling out with the management, and he actually leaves the sport of football entirely for 1 year. He instead chooses to play basketball professionally for the 1992-93 season. I couldn't find any stats, unfortunately, on his basketball career, but it's important to note it is a somewhat natural transition to basketball for him, largely due to his height. He's 6'4", so he's able to have that height to handle on the basketball court. And while his basketball career does only last that one season, he takes a lot of the skills that he learned in basketball and is able to now bring them back into his football career. He's now established as a hard-nosed center back, and some of the physicality that he learned in basketball from boxing out, fighting for rebounds, fighting for loose balls, he's now going to apply that to his defending. As a player, he's known for his physicality and his tight man marking, and also just his general aggression as a defender. In bad moments, this can lead to him being over-aggressive, giving away some fouls, even penalties if it happens in the box. But overall, it makes him an effective defender, and not only that, you combine his aggression with his height at 6'4". He's a great target for free kicks, corner kicks, any kind of set play where they can just get him in the box, try to get him on the end of a ball and head it in. That's kind of his specialty in attack as well. His first year back playing soccer, he's playing in the fourth division for Marsala. The next year, takes a step up to third division Trapani. And the following year, he again takes another step up, playing for Perugia. He helps Perugia in Serie B earn their first promotion back to Serie A for the first time in 15 years. So he's a very foundational part of that Perugia back line. For the 98-99 season, he goes to sign with Everton and has just this 1 year cameo not playing in the Italian system. In 27 appearances for Everton, he gets 3 red cards. And like some of it might be just like the style of game's a little different. They're calling him a little more tightly than they did in Italy.
Is it anti-Italian discrimination?
It very well may be. We're in the early days of international football, players going all over the place. There could be some anti-Italian discrimination going on. And part of that, he recognizes that. He says, I'm not going to get a fair shake here. So just spends the 1 year with Everton, goes back to Perugia following that. They have a fairly successful 99-2000 season. They finished mid-table in Serie A. And it's the 2000-2001 season where Marco Materazzi really starts finding his own. As a defender, he scores 12 goals for the Serie A season, which sets the new Serie A record for goals by a defender. Of note, he scores 7 of these from the penalty spot. Very rare that you trust a defender to take penalties. Usually you're going to have a striker, a forward, but Marco Materazzi, while he is very intense in the field of play, he is able to find his zen, find his calm at the penalty spot, and so he is trusted to take the penalties for Perugia.
May I inquire, is he also drawing all of those penalties? Because I would be very interested. Okay, because I'd be very interested if this is like a hyper-aggressive defender who also manages to like bait a lot of other guys into fouls.
No, the only time he's ever really in the box is on those free kicks, on those corner kicks where, set play, get him forward for a header. If it doesn't succeed, he immediately then backtracks on defense. But this is largely, his teammates earning the penalties, but then still him being trusted to then convert them. Which is, honestly, one of the soccer rules I don't like. I think the person who draws the penalty should be the person.
Oh, it's such bullshit. It's absolute horseshit.
That would be my personal, if I could tweak one rule. But it is to Marco's benefit. It helps him set this record for most goals by a defender in a Serie A season. And after a display like that, the big boys are going to come knocking. So Inter Milan comes to Perugia with an offer they can't refuse. For 10 million euros, Inter Milan signs Marco Materazzi. Now, important for Inter, they are one of the giants in the history of Italian football. You probably think Inter, AC Milan, Roma is up there. Those are kind of your big three. Juventus would complete your big four.
You've gone through the four that I can name now.
Well, then, and also, I need to just say again, from the one game that I went to, because I was in Florence, big Fiorentina guy now. Love Fiorentina. So I can name 5 teams. All that to say, his first season at Inter Milan, everything's going according to plan. Going into the last day of the Serie A campaign, they're in first place. And he's going away at Lazio, where it all started, where he started his youth career, his childhood club that he grew up rooting for. If they can win at Lazio, it'll be Inter's first title since 1989. They lose 4-2. They never have a lead. It's never really close. Instead, it goes to Juventus. Juventus wins the title that year. And afterwards, he gets in a fight with some Lazio players. Specifically, what he says is, I won you the title because it was 2 years prior when he was at Perugia. He did score a late equalizer against Juventus, which allowed Lazio to then go home with the title. So he has a long memory. He's going to hold it against them, but he gets into, a little bit of a fight. Nothing that's worthy of suspension, but we're kind of seeing his hot temper, his, dickheadishness starting to show itself a little bit. Coming off of that season, he does earn a spot in the Italian team for the 2002 World Cup, that one that we were talking about a little bit, where USA was actually successful. He's largely a reserve. The only minutes he gets is in a 2-1 loss to Croatia in the final game of the group stage. Italy already knew they were through, rotate some bodies a little bit. But he still gets all of the heat in the press because they were up 1-0 when he came on. Both Croatia goals kind of get blamed against him for his defending, so he has this hanging over his head a little bit. Italy still goes through to the knockout round. In the round of 16, they play against the hosts, South Korea. And while Marco Materazzi does not play, it is South Korea who goes through on the golden goal. This is the last World Cup that had the golden goal. The host, South Korea, get the stunner in extra time to eliminate mighty Italy. And this ends his first campaign.
I love that World Cup because not only did South Korea make the semis on home soil in a co-hosted World Cup, but so did Turkey. And we had a South Korea-Turkey third place match, which was phenomenal. Goose Hiddink was the manager of South Korea for that 1 year, and he was hated for like the first half of it. And then once they made it to the semis, they gave him like a free house on a private villa for life because he got South Korea to the semifinals of the World Cup.
No, that's a super fun knockout bracket to look at because it's like, holy shit, look at this. Senegal made it to the quarterfinals. USA made it to the quarterfinals. It's a very random, very fun knockout stage to look at. But not very fun if you're an Italian fan because you got knocked out by South Korea in the first round. Coming off of that, he goes back to Inter for the following season. And again, it's just the story of Inter is they can't quite get past this Juventus hurdle. Juventus again takes home the title in 02-03. For the following season, he's playing in the Champions League for Inter Milan when he suffers his first serious injury of his career. And I got to hold you responsible, Xavier, because it is against Arsenal that he suffers his first major injury. He ends up missing about 2 months.
Be responsible for that.
Hey, that was probably the greatest team of all time.
Yeah, because they killed a guy in Italy, it sounds like.
Hey, he deserved it.
Not yet!
No, he did. I know Diaz is being nice here, but there's a long history of Materazzi being an asshole. So
he has a lot of very hard tackles. There's no denying this, and we'll touch on a few of the incidents as we go. Certainly, I'm not here to paint Marco Materazzi as a saint. I'm just here to say the guy that he is. He's out for about 2 months after that, and while he's out, he still can't help himself in his hot temper, even after a win. So, Inter plays at Siena, another Italian club, and it's not really a dramatic game. They win 4-0. One way or another, though, Marco Materazzi is still nice and pissed off after the game, so he finds his way into the Siena locker room, punches another player in the face, gives him a bloody lip. The particulars of who's right, who's wrong, I don't know any of that. All I know is Marco Materazzi is suspended for 8 games following that. And it's kind of just a weird year for Inter in general. They finished 4th for the 03-04 season. 04-05, Marco is on his best behavior. No suspensions this year, no red cards. But again, Inter just cannot claim the title. They again finished 2nd behind Juventus. And it's starting to become a bit of a joke how Juventus just keeps running off these titles. 2005-2006 season, spoiler alert, once again, Inter Milan finishes 2nd to Juventus. And there's no time to hang our heads. There's no time to have division in the Italian ranks. It's time to unite because once again, it's been 4 years. It is time for the 2006 World Cup. Initially, Marco is a reserve player, but there are injuries to the Italian lineup that cause some shuffling, and the end result is that Marco Materazzi is now a consistent starter at center back. So he's in the starting 11, usually playing the full 90 minutes. And Italy pretty much coasts through their group stage in spite of those injuries. They finish on 7 points, the only blemish keeping them from a perfect group stage being a 1-1 tie against ours truly, the United States, who only equalized because of an Italian own goal. But you know what? One time it went in our goal, one time it went in their goal. We don't got to worry about who hit it in.
That was the best moment for the U.S. of that 2006 World Cup. They came into that World Cup in the top 5 in the FIFA rankings. The U.S. was considered a possible contender going into that World Cup.
Well, you got to think, you had prime Landon Donovan. You had not quite prime Tim Howard. I don't even know if Tim Howard would have been the goalie yet. Nonetheless, Landon Donovan is the greatest U.S. soccer player of all time, and that was him in his prime at 06. So, I think the speculation was totally fair.
Also male player.
Yes. And yeah, it's so funny. It's the only blemish on the Italian run. It's the only point that USA got in the whole World Cup. Shows you what a funny sport soccer can be sometimes. But on 7 points, Italy through, no problem. They're into the quarterfinals. Similar to when they played South Korea, they're playing a scrappy team. They're playing Australia, and Australia's just given them a lot more problems than they're expecting. Possession's fairly even, shots are fairly even, and it's 0-0 at halftime. But 5 minutes into the second half, Marco Materazzi is going to leave his impact on the game when he commits an awful foul. It's a red card, and now there's 40 minutes left in the second half. Italy's on 10 men. Marco Materazzi is off the pitch. At this point, if you're an Italian fan, you're an Italian player, you're an Italian coach, you're probably just hoping for penalties. We're down a man for at least 40 minutes. Hopefully we're down a man for 70 minutes because we don't blow it in the first 40 minutes. Let's just get it to penalties. But in the 90th minute and in the 5th minute of extra time, Italy earns a penalty. It is Francesco Totti who steps to the spot, puts it home, and gives Italy the dramatic win to see them through to the quarterfinals as 1-0 winners. Huge here to be able to reset. You now go back to 11 men for your quarterfinal match, but Marco Materazzi does have to serve the 1-match ban. It's no drama, though, as Italy beats Ukraine 3-0, easily able to go through to the semifinal. Marco is named to the starting lineup again for the semifinal. They vanquished their round of 16 ghosts from the last time, getting that late winner against Australia. But now, in the semifinal, they have to vanquish their host ghost, if you will. They're playing Germany. Germany certainly expected to go to at least the final, if not win, especially with the advantage of home soil. And it is a perfect Marco Materazzi game. It is defensive. It is physical. There are no penalties given away. There's some cards along the way. No penalties. We play the 90. We play the 105. We play the 118. And there are no goals. Until finally Italy strikes with 2 goals in the final 3 minutes of the game to go through into the final to face against France. Now, we're going to get to that viral moment, but it's very important to look at how we got there because Marco Materazzi's handprints are all over this game. We mentioned that Zinedine Zidane scored the penalty to give France an early 1-0 lead. It was Marco Materazzi who gave away the penalty, not fouling Zidane, but to another player, on a dodgy penalty call, I think it's fair to say. But I think it's also fair to say, given Marco Materazzi's reputation, he's not getting the benefit of the doubt on any of these kind of 50-50 calls. He gives away the penalty. France goes up 1-0 in the 7th minute. In the 19th minute, Italy has earned a corner, and Andrea Pirlo, one of the best set-piece specialists probably in the history of the game, lofts a perfect corner into the box, and it is Marco Materazzi who gets on the end of it and heads it into the goal to bring Italy back level 1-1. He gave away the penalty, but he got the goal back. We're back on level footing.
What a beautiful strike with the head, too.
Incredible form, and from this point on, we get the 2 early goals, but the rest of the game is very defensive. Neither team wants to make the mistake that ends up costing them the World Cup. Eventually, we go to extra time. It seems all the world, like, they're not just kicking it back and forth, but, like, neither team's really risking going forward too much to get caught on the counter. We're kind of just drifting towards the inevitable penalties for the entirety of this extra time. Then, our viral moment strikes. You can clearly see in the clip of the fateful moment, it's not just a headbutt from Zidane. There are words being exchanged between the two before the headbutt. Some allegations are, and the initial thought in the media is that Materazzi made a comment about Zinedine Zidane's mother, who was ill at the time. Marco vehemently denies this. Again, he lost his own mother at the age of 15. He knows how deep that pain can be. He's not going to go there. Where he is going to go, though, and this is Marco Materazzi, word for word how he recounts it. He's marking Zidane tightly in the box. He's grabbing his shirt a little bit, nothing too crazy. And Zidane says back to Materazzi, if you want my shirt, I'll just give it to you after the game. Some very, not even PG-rated shit talk from Zidane. Marco Materazzi says that he says back, quote, I would rather have your whore sister. Marco
Which
claims
I'm
that he
sure
didn't-
sounds better in Italian.
Oh, wait, hold on. I saw the Italian of it. Let me find it real quick. Preferisco la puttana di tua sorella. You know,
And the
that's what he
problem for
says. he
Zidane
says.
is he speaks Italian because Zidane is a polyglot and can speak, I think, like 5 or 6 languages.
And let that be a lesson. You know, everybody gives Americans shit for only speaking one language, but think how triggered we get just in English. At least we don't know what
Yeah, do
other
you
people
want
are
us
saying.
to get mad in other languages?
It would be horrible. So Marco Materazzi, and like, I tend to believe him because like, that's still a shitty thing to say. Like, it's not like he said like, oh, I said have a nice day. No, he admits, he said, I would rather have your whore sister. Zinedine Zidane instantly sees red, winds his head back, headbutts through the chest, and in seeing red, he draws a red card from the ref. But how we got to that red card is actually pretty fascinating because we need to remember 2006, VAR does not exist yet. If you don't see it happen live, there's nothing you can do. The headbutt also happens well behind the play. So the head official doesn't see anything. But what he does turn around and see is Materazzi on the ground, Zidane standing over him. But that's not enough evidence. All that's evidence of is that Materazzi is on the ground and Zidane is standing over him. So he goes to his first sideline referee, says, did you see anything? He says no. He goes to the other sideline referee. Did you see anything? He says no. Finally, it's the fourth referee, the guy whose job is like ostensibly just to hold up like the here's the subs, here's the added time. But he can contribute when things like this come up. And he pipes up immediately, no, I saw it. A violent headbutt by Zidane. It is worthy of a red card. And here's where there's a lot of dispute because the French team maintains that the fourth official looked to the Italian bench, saw their monitor, saw the replay of it, and then chimed in and said that he saw the headbutt. This is expressly prohibited at this point. There's no, like, they don't show replays of controversial incidents in the stadium. You're not supposed to factor that in whatsoever. If he did see it, he's supposed to be like, ah, shit, well, I didn't see it happen live. Zip his lips. But the ref maintains, no, I saw it with my own eyes. He gives the advisement to the head official, and the head official shows Zinedine Zidane the red. Zidane goes off. It proceeds to the penalties nonetheless, and Italy's going first. Both teams score their first. Marco Materazzi steps to the spot for Italy's second, very calmly scores it. And then France hits the crossbar. So through 2 kicks, Italy is up 2-1. Italy kicks first. Neither team misses the rest of the way. If you do your math, what that gives you is Italy winning the penalty shootout 5-3 and winning the 2006 World Cup. After the game, Again, largely due to, as Xavier has alluded to, Marco Materazzi has a reputation for these things. Sure, he's the person who got headbutted, but as we see in the viral moment, he's rolling on the ground like a lot more than you need to from a headbutt like that. I'm not saying that getting headbutt in the chest doesn't hurt. It doesn't make you roll around on the ground for like 20 seconds.
It is probably the sport I would least like to be headbutted by. Like, thinking about it, I don't think there's any sport where the athletes more thoroughly train their neck to be able to execute a very powerful strike.
No, that's totally fair. And look, I would probably be on the ground if I got headed by Zinedine Zidane. I'm just saying Marco Materazzi, 6'4", tough Italian motherfucker, probably doesn't need to be on the ground after getting headbutted. But he drew the red card. So, you can't really argue with it, except the entire football world argues with it. Zinedine Zidane not only had a reputation as one of the all-time great players, but as one of the all-time great gentlemen of the sport, fiercely competitive, but never known to have incidents like this. It was so extremely out of character for him to have done this, that when the rumors fly that, he said something about his sick mother, like, of course, it had to have been something like that. But no, it was only his sister. Calm down a little bit, Zidane. I say that with my tongue firmly implanted in my cheek. But the punishments that come out afterwards, obviously, if Zidane got a red card, he's supposed to get a match ban, but he's fucking retiring, so who cares? Marco Materazzi did get a 2-game ban, and he also had to pay a fine. Which, all told, I think you would have offered that deal to Marco Materazzi. I think he would have taken it. For a World Cup?
His job is to make that swap.
And at least Zidane already had won a World Cup before. It would have sucked if he had lost the 98 one, and then this was his last chance. But no, the man had already won 2 major tournaments in the 98 World Cup and the 2000 Euros.
Yeah, he had his great moments. But just, again, it can't be said enough. If you don't know the history of, Zinedine Zidane, if you're a hockey guy, this is if, a Lady Bing candidate all of a sudden just fucking freaked out. He's got the 2-game suspension, but he still returns to Italy a hero. And while he's in Italy, having that hero's welcome, championship parades, he also gets some incredible news as it relates to his club, Inter. Now, we said Juventus finished top of the table for the 2005-2006 Serie A season. And when the World Cup was played, Juventus were recognized as the Serie A champions. However, there was a major scandal in Italian football at this time, which alleged that several teams, among them Juventus, had curried favors with different officials to get favorable calls during games.
Al Chipotle.
And that's the word for it. I wasn't going to try to say it. What Xavier said, what it translates to is total bullshit. It was total bullshit what these teams were trying to get away with, and the Italian Football Federation came down heavily on them. They don't see Il Scudetto, the trophy for winning the Italian top flight. They don't see Il Scudetto as just a piece of fabric, just a piece of metal, as, certain baseball commissioners might refer to their trophy, the thing that all of their players work for. They take it a little more seriously. So they retroactively strike Juventus of their title. They relegate them down to Serie B. But most importantly, what this means is that the 05-06 title now goes to the second place finishers, which means that by virtue of this court ruling, Inter Milan win their first Serie A title in 17 years.
Technically champions, the best kind of champions.
They are technically champions, and obviously there's a little bit of a taste of did we really earn this? And it can go one of two ways for your following season, right? You can be on fraud watch the whole time, finish 4th, 5th, and kind of show that you didn't really deserve that title. Or you can go on a dominant campaign and you can show that no. It might have been a technicality that time, but we are the best team in Italy. That's exactly what Inter Milan does. Across the 38-game Serie A season for 06-07, they only lose once. They have 30 wins to go with 7 draws to finish on 97 points. And they not only win Serie A for the second year in a row, the first time actually on the field, being able to say that they're champions. They do it clearing second place Roma by 22 points, which is one of the largest gaps that a Serie A title has ever been won by. Also within that season, Marco Materazzi, again leads defenders, doesn't set the record again, but he scores 10 goals as a defender, and he is named the Serie A Defender of the Year for 06-07. 07-08, Inter Milan, kind of like winning this title thing. Why don't we do it again? They get a three-peat, although not without a little bit of a controversial moment for Marco Materazzi. The second to last day of the season, they could have clinched the title then, no drama going into the final day, and they're tied when they get a late penalty. Marco steps to the spot, he wants to take it, gets into an argument with their striker, Julio Ricardo Cruz, on who should take the penalty. You know, Materazzi, he's kind of big, he's kind of scary, he's going to win those arguments more than not, but kicks it like right at the fucking goalie. Like one of the worst penalties you've ever seen. Inter tie, which means that now they have to win on the last day to clinch the title. Materazzi owns up to it afterwards, says I shouldn't have done that, blah, blah, blah. Ends up not mattering. They win convincingly on the final day, and they get that third consecutive title after a 17-year drought. The following season is when things kind of start falling apart for Marco physically. We got to remember at this point, he's about 33, 34. He's getting up there. He's a reserve for Italy at Euro 2008, which is going to be his final campaign with Italy. Also, when Jose Mourinho comes into Inter Milan, Materazzi is left out of the starting lineup for the most part. He's now going to play a leadership role in the clubhouse, but not so much on the field anymore. Inter still goes on to win their fourth straight Serie A title, so it just took this courtroom victory for them to establish their dominance. Marco is very much a team player in the clubhouse, and in recognition of that, Inter Milan extend his contract, even though he is now a reserve. 2009-2010, they make it 5 straight Serie A titles, but not only that, Inter Milan go on to win the Champions League, beating Bayern Munich 2-0 in the final. Marco gets a late cameo, coming on for Diego Militao, who had scored both the goals, but it's kind of just like, the game's already in hand. Let's get our veteran out there so that he can say that he played in the Champions League final. And a real nice moment for Marco to be able to do that.
Didn't they get the treble that year? Because that was the Jose Mourinho treble.
They did get the treble. Yeah, so a dominant season for Inter Milan. The next year, he's battling through injury again, and the straw that ends up breaking the camel's back. He's named as a starter in their derby match against AC Milan. And early on, gives away a penalty to Zlatan. Zlatan scores it. Zlatan, also kind of known for having his own temper. So there's a challenge where they both go up for the ball later in the game. And Zlatan kind of tries to play the ball. But what he's really doing is he's putting his cleats straight through Marco Materazzi's chest. It's a really, really bad foul that only draws a yellow. But Materazzi has to come out of the game. Ends up being fine, but it was like, if you look at this clip on YouTube and like in football circles, very much the vibe is good on Zlatan for giving Marco his comeuppance. He's done that for decades at this point. But, it's who Marco is. He's able to come back from that. He doesn't really miss any time from the injury, but he's kind of realizing, I'm starting to get it more than I'm giving it. It might be time for me to get out of here. He's entering the last year of his deal for the following season, but Inter do not offer an extension. He kind of just sees the writing on the wall, and so rather than drag out this last season of ceremony, he chooses to just retire right then and there and bring an end to his professional football career. 3 years later, football is starting to take a big foothold in different parts of the world, and we are at the inaugural season of the Indian Super League. They're looking for some household names to come in and give their league some legitimacy. So they recruit Marco to be the player manager of Chennai. He accepts, and in this inaugural season of the Indian Super League, he only plays in 7 of the 14 regular season games. Chennai finished top of the table for the regular season, but the Indian Super League, much like MLS, they opt for a postseason playoff to determine their champion, and they are eliminated in the semifinal. The next year, he's strictly a manager. They finished 3rd in the table, qualified for that playoff. This time they win it, so he is now a championship-winning manager, in addition to all of his great success as a player. In his 3rd season with Chennai, they finished 7th of 8 teams. He's kind of had enough at this point. He and the club agree to separate by mutual consent, and that is his last involvement in professional soccer. Now, we would never say Marco Materazzi is even-keeled or mild-mannered. On the biggest stage in 2006, beyond just that viral moment, you got to see everything that he has to offer as a football player. You see the bad side of the aggression by giving away the penalty that allows France to go up 1-0. You see the good side of the aggression with the desire that he has to get on the end of that cross from Andrea Pirlo and to bring Italy back level 1-1. And then you see the gray side of it, where he successfully baits one of the greatest players of all time, Zinedine Zidane, into losing his temper at that crucial moment, drawing the red card, and arguably it's the moment from which France never recovered into that penalty shootout. Is that good? Is that bad? Who's to say? Certainly not us. We're only here to say what's Guy. And all of the You're the Man Now dogs that came from that moment. You know, your classic Yosemite Sam with the gun. That's one of the more PG-rated ones. There were certainly some more R-rated ones that I'm not going to recount on this podcast, but it's one of the first memes that I can ever remember. And the only thing that I can say in honor of Marco Materazzi, not only are you the man now, dog, you're the guy now, dog.
I have to admit, I spent quite a bit of time on addictinggames.com, where I definitely played at least one game in which Zinedine Zidane repeatedly headbutted Marco Materazzi, like on a field. And I have to admit,
Yes.
like when we were going through which World Cup am we thinking of, I immediately had to shut up, because when we were saying 2006, I was like, oh, this one was Zinedine Zidane. Oh, okay, that's what we're about to talk about. Cool.
Yeah, when he headbutts that guy. And yes, also thank you for shouting out all the different flash games that came from that too. Were they simply press space to headbutt? Yes.
Yeah.
Were they amazing? Yes.
Return. But instead of returning, let's continue with our final guy of the evening. Xavier, let's bring us on home.
So we've heard of two really good guys. You know, one who might be on the cusp of stardom in his sport, very much around there. Another who, not a star, but definitely a popular guy. My guy definitely was not that popular in the general conscience when he was a player. But I think everything else that I'm going to talk about with him more than makes up for that. There are some good football meme guys out there, and weirdly enough, two of the best were teammates. So shout out to Smokin' Jay Cutler, because I really did love that meme. But today I have to go with a different Chicago Bear, Anthony Spice Adams. Spice Adams was born June 18th, 1980 in Detroit. He had a pretty difficult childhood. His dad, Anthony Sr., was sent to jail for armed robbery when Spice was 4. As an aside, there's a really good Players Tribune article that Spice wrote back in 2016 about his relationship with his father, who was an artist and would send him paintings from jail, and that was the main way they communicated. When Spice was 12 years old, he was 289 pounds, and his mom, Constance, suggested he try football as essentially like a weight loss mechanism, and he was very good at it. He later attended Martin Luther King Jr. Senior High School. It is MLK Junior Senior High School in Detroit, where he's a standout defensive tackle. And this earns him a scholarship to Penn State University, where he plays for 4 years. You know, not the best player, but he's a very solid contributor. You know, up in the trenches. As a junior, he has 59 tackles, 3.5 sacks, leads the team in TFLs with 11. As a senior, he has 67 tackles, 2 sacks, 13 TFLs, and 4 pass breakups, and gets named Honorable Mention All Big Ten. In a 2016 retrospective by 247, he was named the 25th best Penn State player since 2000. So, like, one of those random stats that feels very Guy-ish.
But it's fewer than 3 descriptors, and so Craig Goldstein would approve.
And it was also at Penn State that he first gets this nickname Spice, because of his ability to spice up the locker room. He was well known for doing impersonations and also breakdancing, which, for a 300-pound man, was very funny for his teammates to watch do. He also won a rap battle against a Texas A&M rapper before the Alamo Bowl in 1999. In an old Chicago Tribune article, he was asked about dancing around the locker room in just a towel and said, quote, "I've always been like that, trying to be silly and keep the guys loose."
I am going to say I don't think very highly of Texas A&M rappers because I've seen the fucking dorky like call and response shit that they do for the pregame stuff. So I don't have any faith in any of their like lyrical or writing efforts whatsoever. Still good by Spice, but just like low competition level.
I mean, that was freshman year Spice too. So like he took him on regardless. It still takes guts to do that, and he was willing to do it. Robbie Gould, who was his teammate both in college and later with the Bears, said, quote, he does have a lot of personality. One of those guys you want in your locker room. And that's the thing. Pretty much everybody loves Spice. And that's going to be important for later. During the 2003 NFL draft, Spice gets drafted in the second round, 57th overall by the Niners, which is pretty good. He spends 4 years with the Niners. He starts 34 games, has 134 tackles, 15 TFLs, 6 sacks. Nothing special, but a solid interior defensive lineman. March of 2007, he signs a 4-year deal as a free agent with the Chicago Bears. And he plays pretty well for the Bears. The 2010 season, easily the best of his career. He starts all 16 games, 37 tackles, 9 TFLs, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. And he's a key piece for that Bears team that makes it all the way to the conference championship. He also wins the Brian Piccolo Award that year, which is an honor that the Bears give to one rookie and one veteran per season who best exemplify the courage, loyalty, teamwork, dedication, and sense of humor of Brian Piccolo, who was a running back for the Bears from 1966 until his untimely death from cancer in 1970 at the age of 26. So it's essentially a locker room award that's given to one rookie and one veteran each year for the Bears, and he won the veterans version of it back in that 2010 season.
He's a vibes guy.
And these vibes will lead to Spice creating a YouTube channel in 2011. Quote, my teammates were saying that they get to see my personality every day, but the world doesn't. So per their advice, I posted my first video and it went viral. And this video is called Stuff NFL Free Agents Say. And it is a very funny, short 5-minute video of Spice juking his little toddler daughter at one point, trying to do P90X, and interspersed is cuts with him going into his pantry and finding nice snacks and saying, I'll start my diet next week. I found it very funny, and it does go viral. It gets over 1 million views. It's the first video that he's ever posted. He later says, it's like therapy for me to make these videos. It's my release and a way to express myself. Football used to be my release. I thank God that I found something that I'm passionate about other than football. He doesn't officially retire until 2013, but he doesn't really play at all in the 2011-2012 seasons. And in 2013, he posts a video announcing his retirement where he is giving a speech to an empty White Castle. He's playing it totally straight, but it just slowly pans out and he's in a White Castle and nobody is there. And this is essentially like his true pivot into kind of a comedy career. If you didn't recognize Spice Adams from his football career, I guarantee you will have seen him in this phase of his life. Because as of today, Spice is a bona fide social media star. He's got over 400,000 YouTube subscribers, 400,000 TikTok followers, and nearly 2 million Instagram followers. Thanks to his YouTube popularity, along with his experience co-hosting the Inside the Bears TV show, one segment called Big Guys in Compact Cars was pretty viral, which is essentially getting Spice and interior linemen in little mini cars to do interviews where they're kind of like Shaq in his car, like hunched over. Very good.
Is this pre or post Jerry Seinfeld comedians getting cars and coffee? Comedians getting coffee and cars. No, fuck, wait. Comedians in cars getting coffee. Jesus.
I do not know when that was.
Because I hope what we can say is that Jerry Seinfeld ripped off Spice Adams. Like, that's the ideal outcome of this internet search.
No, that was 2012.
Okay.
So that was before then.
Well, this is a better play on Jerry Seinfeld's comment.
In our canon, he came up with it first.
I agree. This leads to the biggest role for Spice in this second part of his career. And then in 2017, he becomes the co-host of the Great American Baking Show, the U.S. spinoff of the Great British Bake Off. And he does this for 3 seasons. First alongside Aisha Curry, and then for 2 years with Baby Spice.
They're really like fucking laying on the name jokes pretty thick over there.
We have 2 seasons of the U.S. version of the Great British Bake Off, hosted by Spice Adams and Baby Spice.
Well, dude, the other one is hosted by Spice and Curry. Like, that's better, I would argue.
It's very good. It's very good. But, we're here to talk about memes, so let's talk about the memes that truly made him famous. Don't take my word for it. There is a 2019 New York Times article called Memes Made Spice Adams More Famous Than the NFL Could. And it gives a pretty good jumping off point for the Spice Adams meme chronology. I think technically, if we want to go in order, the first thing that Spice Adams did that became a true reaction meme was the Spice Adams laugh. This is a compilation of it, starting with the first one and then going through a bunch. This compilation is from 5 years ago and has 2.5 million views on YouTube. But the Spice Adams laugh, a reaction meme that was used for pretty much anything for a very long time. It's not my favorite meme, but it's definitely the first one of his that truly popped off. Another one around that time that people may have seen was his character Old Head, who is a fancy, almost like a pimp character. And there is a video that went viral for a time about showing off wealth, and it's Old Head getting out of his car by sticking his leg all the way up in the air, walking out with a blue and pink suit on and a cigarette in his mouth. My favorite, though, and another one that popped off around the same time and continues to have massive staying power, I saw it literally earlier today on Twitter, is the love story of Leon Lemons. You may not recognize the title, but it is hard to go a few days on the internet without seeing Spice Adams in a yellow suit behind a tree, rubbing his hands as either a full meme template, usually about being excited and or horny, or just the picture itself as a reply. According to Know Your Meme, where it has a full page, the first viral use of it as a meme was a Reddit post that said, EA, we changed the number on the cover, FIFA fans, and then Spice Adams rubbing his hands together, which I enjoy very much as a FIFA fan who from that time knows that they were all the fucking same game.
I've also seen it turn into a sort of preying on your downfall thing before. I'm into that.
It's jack of all trades. It's a very versatile meme. It works very well. I think it's my favorite. One thing that is very funny about this meme, also in internet meme culture, last year, Rainbolt, the guy who is incredible at GeoGuessr, was challenged to find the exact tree that Spice was standing behind in the meme, and he was able to find the exact tree, which is insane to me.
So I found the original post, found where this shoot from the same photographer was taken, which was this conservation preserve in Illinois, knew it would be nearby, used the context of the other photos taken on the same day, identified this flower, sorted every conservation that had these flowers, used the conservation areas left to match the water in the back, using this tree, where I found the exact tree in this photo, in Captain Daniel Wright Wood's Forest Preserve.
I love that it has so much staying power that Rainbolt is taking the time to find that. Now, I kind of want to go to a different Spice character that became a meme. Around this same time, Spice is going viral through his portrayal of the greatest basketball player of all time, Cream Biggums. So the Cream Biggums videos where Spice is portraying supposedly the greatest basketball player of all time through documentary series are very, very funny. So funny, in fact, that the NBA invites him to All-Star Weekend in 2020, and he also becomes a playable character in NBA Live 2020. And that's viral videos, so it's not true memes, but what is true memes is that Cream Biggums also gives us the shooting your shot gif, which, for those who might not be able to picture it in their head, the man grabbing balls from the rack and just jacking up threes with the worst form ever and missing completely. Just awful shots.
What I always appreciated was like, so when you watch it, the first one, he actually puts pretty close and he realized like, oh, I need to start fucking chucking these things to make this funny.
Yeah, they're not bricks, they're air balls.
Like he hits over the back of the board.
Like, yeah, like it's like I'm shocked the glass didn't break.
It's very good. Another Spice Adams video was turned into a meme earlier this year that I've also seen a lot. And I did not realize that this was Spice Adams at first because I had not seen the video where it came from, but it is also a very good one that I've seen. This one is a toothpick changes everything. Have either of you seen that one before?
Yeah.
I have, yeah.
I'm poisoned.
So before doing the research for this, I had seen a ton of Spice Adams memes. Like I said, I love the Leon Lemons meme. It's one of my favorites. I never put it together that they were all the same guy. That was a shock for me, especially like the Cream Bigums thing plus Leon Lemons. I was like, I have used these memes many times before. No idea that they were the same person. And I definitely never put it together that it was all from the same guy who had a 9-year-long pro football career. But given the topic today, we have a guy who has his own Know Your Meme page and then 3 different sub-pages for different memes that have gone viral. As the New York Times said, these memes have made him way more famous than his pro career did. So if we are talking about meme guys or athletes who became memes, Spice Adams is the perfect person for that category, where the memes made the career, and that's why I think that we should induct Spice Adams into the Hall of Guy.
There are a lot of reasons to induct Spice Adams into the Hall of Guy if we start to get into our final litigation here. He has the volume game sewn up. There's no question about that. What I think ultimately is the dividing line between him and the other two, and while I will admit, Xavier, I've enjoyed Spice Adams, loved learning all of this, but I think I do lean towards the other two for 2 related reasons. I'm more than happy to try and be swayed away from them, but I wanted to let you know where I'm starting at. 1, his meme is not coming from his time as an athlete. Marco Materazzi's 100%, while it wasn't because of something he did as an athlete, certainly happened while he was playing. And for Nick Young's, you could say that about the confused Nick Young face, for sure. But that was while he was still playing. And the Nick Young 3 is absolutely right there on the court. The other sticking point for me right now is neither of those cases were guys trying to blow up. Those were moments where like the public latched on to something that just happened. It was magical in that moment for one reason or another. Spice Adams, to his credit, is very funny. Like, is clearly a very funny dude. Not trying to knock that in the slightest. He is trying to be funny on the internet. And that is why he's catching on. And for me personally, that's going to put him in 3rd right now behind the other 2. I don't know where I lean with the other 2, though.
I mean, I think the other 2 are both terrible people, which I want to say.
Neither's like, great. Neither is great
openly. Like, if we're going based on memes and you are only on those 2 people, then it would have to be Swaggy P. Because 1, he's not as terrible as Marco Materazzi, and also the memes are better. Like, the Zidane headbutt is great, but it's called the Zidane headbutt.
Sure,
like,
sure.
Materazzi is part of the meme. Yes, he gets headbutted in this meme, but when you think of the meme, it's not the Marco Materazzi meme. It's the Zidane headbutt. That is also what it's known on Know Your Meme. At least with Swaggy P, they're like named after Swaggy P.
Although what I will say, while it is known as Zidane's headbutt, it is only a meme because of Materazzi's over-the-top reaction. If Materazzi just takes the headbutt and does like a, what's going on, or like, you know, pushes back, then this is just another soccer fight and who gives a shit. It is Materazzi's reaction that makes it a meme.
I think the problem is that when I think of the Zidane headbutt, the first thing I think of is not the actual headbutt. I think of the Family Guy bit, A Birthday Telegram from Zinedine Zidane, where he brings a cake to an old lady and then just headbutts her, throws the cake on her, and says happy birthday in French.
I mean, it should have been Marco Maserati's Nana, is who it should have been. That would have made it a perfect joke. Look, I'm not in love with Marco Materazzi. My only
Maserati would be fucking great. Marco
Yeah.
Maserati would be the most Italian motherfucker that ever lived.
I mean, look, and his father is Giuseppe. Like, that's
Yeah.
also just an Italian as fuck name. But, like, that just makes him Italian. That doesn't necessarily make him a guy.
I'll say real quick on him, Xavier, I genuinely appreciate you speaking up because, like, I think the, like, more you talk about it, if you feel that passionately about a guy being a dick, that does sway me.
I mean, he's Italian and he played in the early 2000s. It would be weirder if he wasn't a dick.
And here's my thing, and, maybe this just speaks to, my values. I'm a person that thinks Chase Utley did nothing wrong when he slid into second base. I very firmly believe that when you are between the lines, you do everything possible to win. And if that means, saying some things about a guy's sister that might get him pissed off and get him to get himself ejected, I mean, he would never be back in a World Cup. That was Zinedine Zidane's last World Cup game. That was also Marco Materazzi's last World Cup game. And Chase Utley did nothing wrong when he slid into second base and he took out Tejada. Marco Materazzi did nothing wrong when he said that Zinedine Zidane's sister, who I'm sure is a very nice lady, when he said that she was not a very nice lady. I think he did nothing wrong.
I think there was nothing wrong with Swaggy P losing to Spice Adams if the two of you leaned that way. The thing that I am just stuck on is, like, to me, and I admit this is fully a personal thing, something about a viral meme has to be unintentional. I think back to, like, Vinko Bogate versus Kimbo Slice. And again, I lost that one, and if I lose this one, absolutely no shame whatsoever.
The last thing I'll say is that I think James was getting a little too hung up on the trying to go viral thing, when what you have to remember is that the virality of memes usually has nothing to do with their original intention. The story of Leon Lemons was like an actual, like, written, like, piece with multiple photos, and it was this one photo of the way Spice Adams was looking that went viral years later for a totally different reason. But, James's piece about the memes happening from the pro career, if that is their understanding of how they wanted it to go, I concede that Spice Adams' memes came in his second life. I think his memes are funnier than the other two, but if we're going to use that as a way to kind of, like, draw a line of the Materazzi's meme and Swaggy P confused Nick Youngface and the turnaround with the Miss 3, those did happen during their playing careers. So if we want to make that distinction based off of James's, like, interpretation of their own category, I'm fine with that.
The longer we've talked about it, I don't feel any type of way about it being tied to the career. I don't think that needs to be a deciding factor. I've thrown that out. And I'm, like I said, I don't think there's any shame if he loses a 2-1 vote. The way that just I think about that virality, what jumps out to me are the things that just accidentally catch on. And even if they caught on for reasons that were not necessarily intended for Spice Adams, like, he's trying to be funny on the internet. And I want to clarify again, I think he is very funny. He is succeeding at that. And that's why he's catching on. Whereas Nick Young was just getting clowned by his mom. Or Nick Young just missed a 3 and that caught on.
What are you thinking, Diaz?
Well, look, I appreciate both of your very nuanced takes on how to interpret this category, what should be considered. Is it truly viral if it was intended? I appreciate all that nuance, but I'm going to make this really simple. There's only one guy this week that I've had personal interactions with, and that is the swag god himself, Nick Swaggy P. Young. And look, I chanted at him thousands of times. He acknowledged dozens of times. And I think we just need to really tip our cap to that. He is a guy's guy. When a bunch of Sixers fans were chanting at him in the middle of a 25-game season, he didn't say, damn, we're not that good of a team. He said, damn, I'm the star. I am Swaggy P. And I'm going to say he's a guy. Welcome to our Hall of Guys, Swaggy P.
Let's induct Matt Paul, too, because he is also Swaggy P.
He had some great catches in intramural.
Yeah, we just got to get him on the show. I'm thrilled that Swaggy P, the prophet of swag, I should clarify, not the god of swag, the prophet of swag, and perhaps now the guy of swag, that he made it in. There are some character clauses here, but some things get through.
We don't ask that our guys be perfect, We just ask that they be guys.
And we ask that you all join us in some thanks being doled out here. Those go to producer Craig and the coders behind him for making all this possible, to musical director Don Ham for that lovely theme music, and also to the two guys that join me here. I like to throw that in there every once in a while, just how thankful I am for Xavier and Diaz. Though most of all, dear listener, it is you for whom we are thankful. And we sure would be even more thankful if you wanted to go ahead and share it with someone. You can do that by directing them to bit.ly/rememberthatguy, all one word, all lowercase. I'm going to try and go now before this internet finally kills me. Anything from you guys on the way out?
Nope.
This is the year.
This is the year, and I've been one of your hosts, James.
I've been the very special guest, Xavier.
And I'm Diaz, and like they always say, when in Rome, do as the guys.
You scared me for a second there, Diaz. I thought you were wearing a Penn State shirt, and I was very worried.
No. This was the official team shirt / gear when the Penn women made the tournament in, I want to say, 2016. And they went against Texas A&M. Texas A&M was the host. That's what the shirt's from.
Does feel like
team shirt for that game.
Does kind of feel like a missed opportunity to not just say pentality.
Well, so this was, I fully agree with you, but the NCAA, you got to remember this is when they gave minimal fucks about women's basketball, period.
True.
So, like, every single team shirt it said, like, Penn mentality, A&M mentality, fucking Colgate mentality. Like, it was just your name here mentality, and that was the branding for every team that year.
Not even womentality or anything like that. Just stick a WO in front.
Yeah, right. No, mentality. Sounds like if there was an alt-right version of Mortal Kombat, they wouldn't be fatalities. They would just be mentalities.
You couldn't make Mortal Kombat anymore because of woke.
You really couldn't, as I have 2022 Mortal Kombat on my PS5.
Yeah.